Good afternoon. We're doing 25 real estate tips for buyers. I'm Randy Jenkins, and this is my video. I'm at Florida Real Estate Partners, which is a real estate brokerage, and I'm also at American Mortgage Services, which is a mortgage brokerage. So if you have any interest in talking real estate, I am here and happy to help. My phone number is here at 727-409-4663. In no particular order, you must keep the seller informed of the financing approval. And in the approval process, there's a 30-day loan approval period that basically, if you do not do what you are supposed to do, you can turn yourself into a cash buyer. Jumping into the contract for just a moment, this is paragraph 8, financing. And if you do not follow the terms of your agreement in this contract, you can suddenly find yourself in a situation where you can lose your deposit or you can be sued for specific performance. If you can't pay for the property, it's unlikely you're going to get sued, but you can lose your deposit. So it's very important that you follow through with what is required in the loan approval period. Number 2, don't ask for closing fees. Ask for closing fees. Ask for price reduction. Ask for prepaids. Ask for buyer agent fees. Understand that you could have a contract asking for a 6% in closing fees, and your lender might say no, and they would only allow you 3%. You would lose your 3% if you don't word it correctly. So when you're asking for closing fees, ask for prepaids, ask for interest rate reduction, buy down, ask for a price reduction, but make sure you use the whole 6%. I've done deals where we've offered 6% and they only used 5%, and it cost them 1% because they didn't word it correctly. If you're looking at a home and you like it, pull the permits. When you buy a home, it is your problem if there's unpermitted work. It's the owner that has the problem. You can't say it was this way when I bought it. It's still your problem. Now, it's okay to buy homes with unpermitted work as long as you know and accept that it's basically substandard and you get a price reduction. This is a great time to renegotiate on price. It's possible that the current owner doesn't even know that they have unpermitted work. Now, the contract says that permits that are not closed out must be disclosed. It doesn't say that they must be closed out. And all your offers should include the wording, seller to close out open permits. Get a survey at the time of closing. Your title insurance will cover the boundary lines and any boundary disputes that you have. The survey will identify it, and always have a survey as part of your closing package, or you're taking an unnecessary risk. If you ever do any work on the property, the county is going to require you to have a survey to do a permit, to get a permit. And there's no reason not to get the permit at closing because the title insurance will cover any boundary disputes that you might have in the future. Tax assessed values change when your transaction. People have been buying homes. They think the taxes are $4,500 or whatever because that's what the current owner is being taxed at. But the reality is, I had a transaction blow up because we did the research and we found out that the new tax bill was going to go up to $8,500. This information is readily available if you know how to access it. But and if you go to the tax collector, you'll find out that every day they get buyers that come in and I thought the taxes were $4,500, not realizing that the tax assessed value has changed every time there's a new deed. And this can be devastating. And a new deed can include you changing your deed to a trust. And I've lived this nightmare, and don't do any unnecessary deeds. Loan estimates on financing are due within 3 days. And if you don't get a loan estimate in 3 days, you have a problem, and your lender may not be your friend. The loan estimate gives you a good faith estimate of the closing fees. And if you get a loan estimate, and you're required and supposed to get a loan estimate, but if you don't get a loan estimate and you go to closing and you see that you're just getting whacked, you're getting beat up, you're paying an enormous amount, and you had no idea what your fees were going to be, that loan estimate will allow you to argue the fees. Treat every document as if you will have to defend it in court. I guess that's sort of self-explanatory. All right, get a sewage line camera inspection. These are $300 to $500. If you're buying a home that was built in the 70s or 80s, it's likely that the sewage line is suspect. A $300 to $500 inspection expense is more than offset by the potential for a $15,000 sewage line repair. You might be buying a house that hardly anyone lived in, or you might be buying a house where only one person or two people lived in it, and then your 5 people move in, and suddenly you've got sewage backing up, and there's no warranty for that. It's buyer beware, and a sewage line inspection. Look, you might find that there's roots growing in the sewage line or sewage line cracks, and you can get a concession. Get the seller to pay for this before closing and avoid the crap. Self-explanatory. Renovation loans. A lot of people will buy a home and then they decide that they're going to put $50,000 or $75,000 in improvements into the home. You can buy that home on a renovation loan and have the financing ready to do the funding ready to do the repairs. A lot of homes may not be up to your standard, but you like the home. I can afford a $400,000 home, and this one's only $325,000, but I'm going to have to spend $50,000 to get it to be the way I like it. You can buy it with a renovation loan, include the money for the rehab, and still be in your $400,000 budget at $375,000. When you extend one deadline, extend them all. There are 4 important deadlines: deposit, inspection, the financing that we talked about in tip number 1, and title. Treat these as drop dead dates. Put them on your calendar. Once you have the effective date, when the last person signs the contract, that is the effective date, and all the other dates will be easily put on your calendar. But sometimes you'll extend. For example, you might extend the inspection period because you're waiting for repairs to be done. Do not extend the inspection period without extending the financing and the title inspection periods. When buying a home, talk to the neighbors before the inspection period ends. Look, you buy a home, the next week or two, you're meeting the neighbors. They're going to tell you all the stories about that home. They're going to tell you all about the neighborhood, and they're going to tell you all about, oh, that neighbor is this, or this neighbor is that, or you might have a deal breaker in there. You can easily find this out during the inspection period and walk away without losing your deposit. You basically walk around the neighborhood to the homes that are near the home you're buying. Hey, I'm Randy. I'm buying this home. I'm so excited. I just wanted to say hello. And, how do you like the neighborhood? And they are going to talk or not, but they might say something that causes you to wish that you had had this conversation before you got out of your inspection period. You always want to include some controversial stuff in your content, and this one is going to have a number of investors are going to say, no, you don't have to do this. But if you're a cash buyer, you're likely not going to get an appraisal, but an appraisal gives you a way out. It also gives you the opportunity to renegotiate price. So you send over a cash contract, click the appraisal button. You may get an appraisal that shocks you. You may find out that you can go back in there and renegotiate the contract based on that appraisal. Or you can use it as a way to get out of the contract. All right, if you're buying a flip, use a different title company and make sure that they use a different underwriter. For years, I've always used the same underwriter, the same title company, because it's easy. They've already done the title work. The thing about it is that the deeds, let's say you sell the property, an A to B, and then they resell the property B to C. Now, your deed has title insurance, and then the B to C has title insurance. If it's the same title company and there's an issue that's subsequently found and you don't use a second title company, they could go through that first deed to the second deed. They can go from the B to the A and come back and spank you if they find something that you could be potentially liable for. Now, this is a very unusual situation, and in 50, 100,000 transactions, it's only come up once that I've ever heard, but it turned into a disaster. So if you're buying a flip, someone bought a flip, they resold it to you, you rehab and retail the house, make sure you use a different title company. You can still get the reissue rate, but use a different underwriter. The listing agent works for the seller. So if you're a buyer and you go to the listing agent, and a lot of people are doing this now with this new buyer's broker agreement, which I'm not covering because it's a very long and touchy subject, but there's a lot of horror stories where the listing agent who works for the seller did not do everything they would have done if they had been working for the buyer. And the nightmares and the disasters that occur, look, you're on your own if you work for the seller's agent. Dirt roads mean future paving liens. I've sold a lot of land, and I've sold a lot of properties on dirt roads. And if you buy land on a dirt road, it's going to be substantially cheaper than buying one on a paved road. But let me tell you, you could buy that property on a paved road for 50 grand, or you can buy another property on an unpaved road for 25 grand. You may end up with a $25,000 paving lien. And a dirt road may be worth next to nothing when you include the paving lien. But you don't know what the paving lien is going to be, and you don't know when it's going to happen. And the idea that, oh, the county's going to pave the road. Yeah, they're going to pave the road, but they're going to charge you if you have frontage on that. And I've seen properties where, it was a nice property. It was on the corner of two dirt roads. You could have had 200 or 300 feet of paving lien. And by the way, the lien is based on the number of feet. So if you buy in a dirt road and it's a flag lot, you may only have, 30 or 40 feet. But if you buy in the corner of two dirt roads, you could have 300 or 500 feet. So dirt roads mean future paving liens. People don't realize how many things are required to buy a home and in what order they should be done. And if you don't know, Google 179 ways agents who are realtors are worth every penny of their compensation. This is going to be the biggest transaction, likely be the biggest transaction of your life. And if you don't have somebody, an advocate in your corner to help you steer you through this process, and like one of the previous tips, the listing agent works for the seller. If you don't have an advocate working for you in this process, you may come to regret it. All right, deed fraud. Deed fraud generally occurs on homes without a mortgage, although I think there'll come a day when small mortgages are still, homes that have small mortgages are targeted. Now, deed fraud usually is accompanied by identity theft. And generally, if you go through a realtor and there's deed fraud, you're going to be in a lot better shape than if you buy a for sale by owner. The seller generally picks the title company. And if the title company is in cahoots with the seller and it's all fraud and your title policy is fraud, you could be in a very, very bad situation. You could lose all your money. So generally, if you go through a realtor, the realtor is going to have a real legitimate title company. But if you buy a for sale by owner, and even if you go through a title company, you could be at risk. Vacant land especially is a huge problem with deed fraud. I've done a lot of deals over the years, and I've had deals where the buyer has chosen to pick the title company. Now think about it. Whoever picks the title company pays the fees. And so usually, naturally, mostly, we realtors let the seller pick the title company. And the title company is going to be responsible for making sure there's no deed fraud. And a legitimate title company, you will have title insurance that will protect you. The problem is the title insurance only covers your purchase amount. So if you buy a property and, I don't know, you pay $200,000 for it, and you put $50,000 worth of improvements into the property, you're only going to be covered for the $200,000. So you don't want to be a victim of deed fraud, and you just got to be careful. And it's a reason for using your title company, and it's a reason for using a realtor. Okay, why am I paying more for this home? Homes are not sold based on appraisal. Homes are sold based on competition. You pick a home that's very desirable, and you and other buyers think it's desirable, and next thing you know, there's a bidding war. Suddenly you're paying a premium because of competition. Homes are sold based on the price that buyers are willing to pay. It's not based on appraisal. It's not based on tax assessed value. And homes are not even sold based on the asking price. Homes are sold based on what the competition will pay in a bidding war. Now, we're in a weird market right now. We've had these storms. I think everything's going to be selling at discounts. I think it's an opportunity to get a great deal. And one of the tips that I don't have on here is having to do with these homes that are flooding. Freshwater flooding is occurring right now in Hillsborough County and in Pasco County and probably other places that I haven't been following. But it's really important that you understand that there's a lot of risk in buying a home and buying property. Okay, when you're buying a home or when you're shopping for a home, you're just looking. And when you're just looking, I see this over and over where, I'm following the market. I'm watching Zillow. Well, you're not following the market. You're watching the overpriced dreams of sellers who are hoping to make a record for their neighborhood. The market is not the active listings. The market is the solds. Now, the pendings are an indication of what's happening in your criteria. For example, if you're a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage, block home, 1,500 to 2,000 square feet buyer, you're probably a $250,000 to $325,000 buyer. How do you follow the market? By watching the actives. You're just watching what's available at some seller's dream price. You must watch the pendings and you must watch the solds. The solds tell us the true value of a property. So if you're one of my buyers, I'm not sending you just actives. I'm sending you actives, I'm sending you pendings, I'm sending you solds, and I'm telling you what to look for in this data. Now, if you're spending time trying to buy a house, if you're just looking, you're going to see a property come out and go, oh, wow, look at that property. Oh, 456 Main Street. Well, that's an interesting property. Honey, look at this house. And you're going to say, oh, wow, this looks like a good deal. And then next day you get an email from me and it says, pending. You're going to, oh my God, I knew that was a good deal. And then 6 weeks later or 4 weeks later, you get an email and it says sold. And you're going to say, they were asking $275,000 and this one went for $300,000. I knew that was a good deal. Did you see that kitchen or did you see that location or what have you? And then other houses are going to come along in your criteria and you're going to say, wow, this one's priced pretty high. And months go by and the price goes down and you're going to get those price changes. You can say, wow, the price on that one dropped. Look, I knew this was overvalued. Look, it's now 120 days on the market. They've dropped it $50,000. And then you're going to say, oh, wow, it went pending. And then you're going to see it sold for another $25,000 less. And you're going to be an expert in that criteria so that when something comes out, you are going to know this is a good deal. Or you're going to know, wow, this one's not a good deal. And You're not going to learn this. It's like buying a car. I'm going to buy a Ford Explorer. You go to 3 dealerships and you shop and you look at the extras and you look at the price and you go to the second dealership and you go to the third dealership and maybe go back to the first dealership. And then you're looking in Craigslist and Auto Trader. And the next thing you know, you are an expert in Ford Explorers. It's the same thing that happens when you pick a criteria. I want a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 3-car garage, pool home. I'll make you an expert in that criteria. We'll look at everything out there. We'll look at all the solds. We'll look at all the pendings. And we will not be looking at Zillow to figure out the market. We won't be looking at the actives. All right, bad title. You're not going to have this happen when you buy through a realtor. Or you're going to be in a situation where at the very end of this process, you're going to find out there is bad title. Buying bad title is kind of crazy. It's for professionals. I buy bad title. And if you have a property with bad title, I fix bad titles. Sometimes I just pay off the liens to fix the title. Sometimes we have to do a quiet title, a lawsuit to clear up the title. There are title companies that will do title repair. It could mean a lot of money out of pocket to do title repair, but you should not buy bad title if you don't know what you're doing. All right, open houses. Right now we're seeing a lot of open houses, and the reason we're seeing a lot of open houses is because the market's not very good. When we see open house signs, I always think, I wonder if that's a new listing or if that's an old, stale, dank listing that they can't sell. It's some realtor who's about to lose their listing because they can't sell it. So they don't know what else to do, so they have an open house. Now, right now, we're seeing lots and lots of open houses, and like I said, it's because the market is not that great. Off-market properties can be the best deal. Unlisted properties. If you have somebody who wants to sell their home and it's not listed, and they talk to you about it, you're one person. You're the only buyer. Unless, of course, they put it on Zillow and, they priced it right. And then they can, if they can get competition and create a bidding war by pricing it low. If you're watching my other videos on the waterfronts and the flood zone homes, some of them have come out. One in particular on Claudia came out at $175,000. They had 24 plus offers and sold it substantially over the asking price. But that's a pricing strategy for a listed home. But if you can get a line on unlisted houses that are for sale, it could mean that the property needs work. They don't want to list it. They're embarrassed to have a whole bunch of realtors and people walking through the property. They're willing to sell it to you because you're a buyer or they know you or somehow you found an unlisted property. They're the best deals, in my opinion. All right, FHA, VA, and government loans are assumable. The thing about FHA buyers are they don't have a lot of money. So I'll give you an example. A $250,000 home. The seller has an FHA mortgage on it at 2.5%. Now, you would love to take over that mortgage. Everybody would love to take over that mortgage. The problem is they only owe $150,000, and the house is $200,000. So you'd need to come up with $100,000 to buy that home. And generally speaking, FHA buyers and VA buyers can come in with no money down. Generally, they don't have the cash to make up the difference between the sale amount and the balance on the mortgage. But if you are a cash buyer, you can, and you qualify for FHA. It's going to be your primary residence. You have verifiable income. You have a credit score of 580 can be as low as 580, but ideally it's a little bit more. And if you've got $100,000 in cash, it may very well be that you can take over that mortgage. Cash buyers generally don't think about assuming a mortgage, but let's face it. The reason you're a cash buyer is you have money. The reason you have money is you're smart. You were able to put it away, whether through earnings or inheritance or what have you. If you have cash and you're looking for places to invest and you're going to buy a home, you would buy all of the 2.5% or 3.5% money that you could get. So instead of putting $250,000 down on a home, You put $100,000 down, take over that 2.5 or 3.5 or 4.5% mortgage, and you'll be sitting pretty. I just noticed that there's no number 23. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make up number 23. We've got all this flooding going on from these two hurricanes, Milton and Helene. And somehow or another, we are having tremendous freshwater flooding that's occurring 2 days after Milton. I'm not a meteorologist or geologist or what, but we've been brainstorming, trying to figure out what the heck is going on. It hasn't rained in 2 days, and yet we are having massive freshwater flooding. Apparently, in my opinion, when you have a foot of rain, that water's got to go somewhere. So it fills the aquifer, and then it sits, and it gets deeper and deeper. We've got something up here called the Starkey Preserve. It's 8,000 acres, and it took on, who knows, millions, tens of millions of gallons of water. And that water, it's like, imagine a bowl. It filled up, and it got higher and higher and higher, and then it got strong enough to break through whatever barriers were holding the water in place. I was the morning after on Milton, I was driving down Lake Drive when a literal river, I came upon a river going across the road, 1.5 feet of water rushing like a river with whitecaps, with rapids. And it was, to me, it was like, what the heck is going on? And I thought about it, and I looked at the map, and I realized that was water that was coming from the east, where the Starkey Preserve is, and it was going west. And that water was looking to go to the lowest point possible. And it actually dried up. But subsequently, water is gushing out onto the Anclote River, which interestingly did not flood during Milton. And now all that water, that 1 foot or 13 or 14 inches of water that came down during Milton, that seemed to have found a home there briefly for a day or two, found a way out of wherever it was. It filled the aquifer. It filled, Brooker's, gosh, I guess my phone, they really want me. The watershed and the whole system of water is part of this big phenomenon of where does the water go? But we had 12 or 14 inches of rain, and it had to go somewhere, and it's flooding places that generally do not flood. So if you're a buyer and you are coming to down, you definitely need to find a realtor who has an altimeter, who can tell you what the actual elevation is of each property. And the funny thing is, nobody's carrying around altimeters, although I've been, for the last 2 or 3 days, I've been saying I need an altimeter, and maybe I'll get one. In the meantime, I'm Randal Jenkins. I'm here to help. If you have any questions or comments, or would like to talk about real estate, as much as I enjoy giving out this information for the benefit of my customers and clients and friends, it actually is to my great benefit, because it helps me quantify and clarify and ask the questions and maybe even answer some of them. Have a great day.